Yes. As Helen has just said about solar panels on the church, it so happens that all Anglican churches, and maybe other churches as well, have a big south-facing roof, which is ideal for solar panels. It's worth saying.
Yeah, that's very good. That wasn't a question. We got away with that one. Next. Here we go. I'm coming.
This is a question primarily for Margot. I was very interested in what you were saying about hope. And what would you say to the person, somebody said this to me when I was giving a talk, she said, if, as Christians, we believe that God is going to destroy the world totally and then recreate it, what is the point of trying to renew it? Now, I wasn't clear from what you said whether you think it's this physical world that's going to be renewed by God, or whether it's something, what we read in Revelation 21 is something completely new. And how would you answer that person?
There we go, Margot, you're going to love this one.
Yeah, can I give two answers to that? The first is, let's imagine that Christians believe that this world is going to be totally destroyed and there's going to be something totally new. So let's imagine that to start with. And I want you to imagine that your grandmother, let's say grandfather, made a beautiful rocking chair that was absolutely beautiful, trained as a carpenter, made this perfect rocking chair. It was given to your mother as a present and then passed on to you. Now, one day that chair is going to fall apart. It won't last forever. But how do you treat it? You don't think, well, it's going doomed for destruction. Eventually we can, bash it about. You care for it, you look after it. And things I've inherited from my parents, I really look after because I value them. So even if this world is doomed to destruction, and my meteorologist colleague tells me that the universe is not going to survive, but we still care for it, don't we? But actually, my understanding, the more I've looked at the Bible, the more I've thought about it, is that actually what is being predicted is that one day this world will be renewed and restored. In Revelation 21, it talks about a new heaven and a new earth. And in Greek, there are two words for new. There is neos, which means totally, totally new. And there is kainos, and kainos means made new. I often joke that we've only ever had a kainos new car. It's incredibly new to us. It looks incredibly wonderful, but it's always had a previous owner. And that's not a great analogy, but it does give you that idea. And so this world is, will be made new, will be renewed. And so we're actually living in what will eventually be made new. And so although we can't bring that in ourselves, we should be working towards that newness. So does that give you kind of, two ways of looking at it?
It's all Greek to me. So, next question. It's genuine. I haven't got any questions, but here we go.
Picking up on the South Roofs situation with churches, there is a stumbling block with, well, I don't know whether the new regulations that are coming in are going to change things, with diocesan and also with more so with local planning people, that with a listed building, things that one could do are limited or are being limited. So is there some advice? You can't answer this simply, but there is, where do we go with this dichotomy?
Okay, wisdom on the team. How do we put solar panels on our roof?
I've put myself in this, haven't I? I'm mentioning solar panels. I'm not a buildings expert. I know there are churches out there that have been able to do this. St James's, that I think I mentioned, it's a grade 1 listed.
Just switch microphones if we go.
Thank you. St James's that I mentioned, which is grade 1 listed, I mean, they did this probably 15 years back, and they've positioned the panels in such a way that they're not visible on obviously a Christopher Wren very famous building. Margot's just told me they weren't allowed to do that on their church in Haddenham. It does vary. I am not familiar with the faculty process, There is a lot of good stuff on the Church of England environment section of their website. Catherine Ross, who runs the environment programme there, has had lots of webinars with various experts, all of which are recorded. So I'm slightly going to pass the buck to the buildings experts. So yes, it's not a panacea. It would be lovely if we could all do it. It's probably a case-by-case basis.
We were applying in Haddenham about 13 years ago, and the crunch was we didn't have a parapet, the little wall that will make it not visible. And I know our church member who was spearheading it put in an email saying, could we put in a faculty for a parapet, please? But it was a terrible shame, because it was, if you like, the back of the church, the beautiful village scene with the duck pond was north facing. And it was only the main line to London that would have seen us, and it would have been a good witness. But that was 13 years ago. Things are changing. I would say persist. And if you've got that back, if it's happened 10 years ago in your church, try again. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, even this week it's changing, so do keep persisting. There was one over here I saw. Someone over here had a question. Was it a different question? Here we go.
Mike, I would like, there's a lot of emphasis at the moment on the sort of what 3 words to get direction. Could we concentrate on what 3 letters, and those being VOC? This is something we can all control within our homes, letting out a lot, affecting the climate as well as our families and our own homes.
So what does VOC stand for?
They are volatile organic chemicals, which we are using every day. There is chipboard in our furniture, there is in the carpets and the curtains, there's toiletries that we use, hairsprays, cosmetics, cleaning products. That's something that we all have control of.
Yeah, very good. Do we want to comment? It wasn't a question. Okay, we'll take the next question. I'm on my way. I'm not too fast, sorry. Aha, this is the Woodland Trust.
Hi, yeah. I think if I listened correctly, all 3 speakers have mentioned the importance of partnerships and working in partnership. And I'm a great believer in that. And thinking about COP26, I came away from that thinking, brilliant, we're heading in the right direction. Since then, we've had a cost of living crisis, which is with us, the Ukrainian war, and certainly in the tree sector, the farming sector, government have seemed to become more polarized, and we're losing that kind of sense of partnership. Just any thoughts about how we can sort of avoid that and make sure we're making the most of working in partnership across all of those sectors?
That's a very good question.
George, is this working, this microphone? Yeah. So, I went to COP26, and it was interesting, the sort of generation of, interest and enthusiasm, actually, within the UK. I think it's a matter of keeping these things on the agenda, really. I think we had about 70 people registered for today. You are a sign, or we are a sign collectively that, this is still important. And I think it's down to all of us to talk about these issues and to go on looking for those opportunities. And I suppose you've always got to be a little aware of the present situation. And, there's an obvious thing there, which I just hinted at the end of my talk, around fossil fuels being at the cause of actually quite a lot of the world's problems. And you think back over, way back to my memories of the 70s that I can remember, of sort of, fuel crises then. It's not a happy history of our involvement with fossil fuel. And I think, this is a moment potentially to put more emphasis on things like energy efficiency, which, it seems a no-brainer to me to focus on, and as well as all the alternative energies. So, I think it's down to us, and certainly when we were setting up this day, it was a really big theme we wanted. So to have people like yourself here representing the Woodland Trust, to have HEAT, our local environmental action team, here, it can be done, but it's on us. And I think really it's easy to blame politicians, and they sometimes make it quite easy for us to blame them, but they are responding very often to what they sense of the mood in the country. So, you know, we get the politicians we deserve, people often say. I'm not going to go there. But, you know...
Changing the subject.
But actually, we do have to change the subject, don't we, and the national conversation. So it's on all of us.
Yeah, our partnership with the Woodland Trust has been absolutely brilliant for us. So, for example, the Kirby Estate, I think it was Patrick, I don't know if you're still here, Patrick, but Patrick introduced me to someone who owns the Kirby Estate. And so I asked them, could we please plant some trees with you? And I think we've planted 1,600 trees with them. And so they're a big landowner. They've got land available, and we discovered that we could plant 840 trees in one morning with 8 of us. We were able to do a lot, because they were very organised, they knew exactly what they wanted. We were able to do a lot of work. So, I want to say thank you, honestly, to the Woodland Trust. Not everyone will be like me, but the sort of thing I do is when I was filling my car up with fuel, there's another truck came into the garage that said Broadmead Estate down the side. So I stopped filling up my car and I went to talk to him and said, can we plant some trees for you, please? You could do that. You know, and the deal for us is very simple. The way the Woodland Trust have set it up is we say that you can choose which species, you can choose where they go, we'll do all the work, and you'll own them. Why would you not do that? You know, we can tell it's sort of who I am, but just go for partnerships. It works very, very well.
My name's Bruce Mayhew. I'm a trustee of the Town and Manor, and I just want to say that the Town and Manor probably does more for the environment in Hungerford than any other organisation, with 5.5 miles of stream and 500 acres of land and thousands of trees. However, my question is that what are the people who stop all the traffic? I can't.
Oh, Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah, Extinction Rebellion stops the development of an oil field of Scotland. They also are very against fracking, yet the poor in this country are having to buy all their fuel from America and Russia, but very little from Russia, but from America. And we're going to have to do that for many years to come, whether we like it or not. We do need fuel to heat our houses. So what is your opinion about Extinction Rebellion stopping fracking and stopping the development of the oil fields and stopping of a new coal mine actually in our land, rather than having to buy it from America at huge additional cost?
So first of all, can I say thank you to Town and Manor, because the truth is we planted lots of trees with you, and we planted weeds along, I don't know what you would call them, peripheral weeds alongside one of your lakes. And they've got this guy, Rob Starr, who's their river keeper, and he's absolutely brilliant. So first of all, can we have a round of applause for Bruce and his team? I know you don't lead it, but you are a keeper, you are a trustee. And then we'll take the harder question about, we'd love to all go towards green resources, green production of electricity in the long term, but there's a timing issue, isn't there? How are we going to get from the present day until the future? Do we need to have Cambo? Do we need to have fracking? How are we going to get between now and then?
So I take that. I mean, there's a couple of questions there. One is, I suppose, the methods of Extinction Rebellion. I mean, I've never, willingly sat down in a road or anything like that, and that's not the way I work. I think there's a legitimate role for protest, but no, I can't say I sign up for those more disruptive approaches, particularly where it affects ordinary life for ordinary people. I think that the harder question is, how do you balance the energy mix going forward? And I mean, it seems to me the first thing you have to do is to reduce the amount we use. And that's the thing that makes everything easier. And there's still a huge way we can go. When we bought our present house in Hungerford 13 years ago, we found by putting in double glazing and cavity wall insulation, putting our own solar panels on our roof, and
You're not answering my question.
I'm coming there, because I do actually think that energy efficiency is the absolute start. If we're using...
Before, I happen to pay massive amounts of their fuel because we're buying it from America. Surely we should be getting some in our own ground.
Yeah, okay, I'm coming there, but I think we can't have that discussion until we actually do start to reduce our use and cut out the unnecessary use and the waste, which is prolific. And then the next thing we do need to do, and is changing, rapidly, is renewables. And, I can remember, I've had lectures from people 20, 30 years ago telling me how wind would never get to the stage that it has now, and it clearly is now there, and there are days when we use very little, relatively little fossil energy, because a lot of it is coming from renewables. Now, there's some questions about energy storage, so that's an important element of it. Now, when you've done all of that, reducing energy efficiency, improving energy storage, ramping up renewables, then you are still, for the immediate future, you are going to need some fossil fuels. So it can't be switched off overnight. I think, do we want to actually start opening up new oil fields? That's where I do have a problem. If we really have to, then yes, maybe. But I really don't think that can be a priority. Extracting more of what we have now, yes, okay. But it too easily slips into an excuse for delaying action in other things. I mean, the other thing we haven't talked about is nuclear, and nuclear is quite an expensive option, but it is an option for what they call the base load for energy grids. So I would only with very great reluctance see any new oil fields open up in the UK. And bear in mind, a whole new oil field isn't going to solve the problem, this year about fuel prices. And then there's a final issue on fuel poverty, and I think there are different ways of treating this. We do support people in need in this country, and we can target, subsidies, as the government is currently doing, to ensure that fuel poverty is alleviated. And I think, for example, making homes more energy efficient and therefore more comfortable as well can also be targeted that way. So it's, for me, fossil fuel, any further development is an absolute last resort, but I can see we're not going to instantly switch it off, today.
Margaret's keen to come in as well.
Yeah, just to say, our present crisis is causing us to need to import fossil fuels, but the solution by opening up new oil, gas fields and fracking isn't going to solve what we've got at the moment. But you can get wind and solar up really rapidly. It takes a lot longer to do fossil fuels or to do nuclear. So the quickest way to solve things for everybody, including the poorer people, is to actually get a much more renewable energy. The next thing we need to do is to make sure that building new homes, we stop setting in gas mains, which they're doing all over the place. And you will then build homes that are much cheaper for people to run, because if you build homes that are much more sustainable, that are using heat pumps or other things, you've got renewable energy, you will make much cheaper homes. And so the best way for the poor people is to actually go through a sustainable route, and the quickest way to get us out of this crisis.
Okay, I'm going to change the question. We've got 5 minutes, because I like lunch. Yes, you were saying it before, sorry.
Yeah. I was very interested to picture of Greta Thunberg. Yeah. Friends of mine in Sweden say that she's called Pippa Longstocking over there. But all of this is going to require behavioural change. Have you got some examples of where it's working practically with children and young people?
That's a very good question. Okay, children and young people.
Sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of that question.
All right, so the question really is, if we're going to have behavioural change, how are we going to influence our children and young people to bring about behavioural change?
I think actually the young people I meet are far greener than the older people. And many are really making changes in their lifestyle. They're really thinking about it. So I think that change is beginning. I think probably the bigger challenge is with older people, I think, quite often. But I don't know. Helen, what do you think?
No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think also you've made me think of the Young Christian Climate Network, a wonderful growing group of young people in their late teens and 20s who undertook a pilgrimage from Cornwall right up to Glasgow last year via lots of towns and cities to really emphasise how important this is for them. But all of whom in their own lives will be campaigning, changing, taking their own actions. And I'm sure that's replicated. That group of young people is one example, but I'm sure that's replicated across the board. There's a movement called Eco Schools also growing, lots going on in schools.
So if you're a church here, I'd encourage you to talk to your local school and offer to run their Eco School after school club. That's what we do. Now, this is Helen. Helen is chair of Hungerford Environmental Action Team, and she's wearing the best polo shirt in the world. Can we have a quick twirl? Oh, this is good. Very good.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. So my question is slightly related to the last gentleman's question, and it's really just any advice on how you engage the wider community and lay community in environmental issues and actually taking action. Because, as Mike said, I'm chair of the Environmental Action Team. We're doing absolutely loads of free events, and we're engaging some people, but there's some of the people that we really want to reach, like the people that are really suffering from the cost of heating their homes, for example. We're not engaging those people, and it's about how do we get the message through, and you're clearly all doing things that are engaging, especially the work you talked about, Helen, with some of the projects that you've done in Bristol and in Southall. And it's how do you reach out to those people and make them realise that we're putting these things on to help these people. And I know it's $1 million question, because if we knew how to do it, then everyone would be doing it. But if there's sort of any advice or anything, because we're doing lots of things, but some are working, but clearly we're not getting to the people that we really want to as well. Thank you.
You might be doing better than you think, Helen. So how do we engage some more folk?
I think partnership is one of the really good things, and I'm really keen that secular organisations and church partner together, because church often has a lot of intergenerational stuff. We work with older people, work with younger people. We're often into residential homes. We're into schools, and so we've got those contacts sometimes. But we partnering with other organisations around can be is really important. If we work together and we find what links we've got and how we can get into the community and where we've got those strengths, then we can actually get that to work.
Yeah, I think also, so thinking of Hazelnut again, Hazelnut Community Farm, who you mentioned, Helen, they have created such a safe and welcoming space, and it seems like giving people somehow permission to come and gather together and be supported. The day that I went to see Hazelnut, there was a group of men there clearing a path, and they were sort of supporting each other, preparing to subsequently come back with a group of ex-offenders who then would also, be part of what's going on that piece of land. There's just all sorts of groups that, some of it is down to Reverend John White. Sometimes it is, well, not sometimes, there's often leadership needed in all of these situations. But it was about, I think, that safe space and that welcoming space. Maybe something about it being a church that doesn't have walls. People, are coming into a garden. So it's trying to create the space for those conversations, and people to feel welcome.
Yeah, that's very good. Folks, our time is gone. Thank you very, very much. So let's give the panel a round of applause, shall we? If you have a question you haven't asked, or if you have a question you feel like we've ducked, still get them, okay? So we've got an hour before lunch. It's deliberately left a whole hour. There's some bookstores to have a look at, and do please have a nose around as well. So you do go and have a look at the Wildflower Meadow. I'd like your suggestions too on how we can improve it. That'd be really, really good. We're going to reconvene at 1:30 exactly.
Oh, they've got questions. Yeah.